Good morning, everyone. Let's get ourselves centered here. Some of you are still signing in. Welcome to First Church of Religious Science here in New York City. Welcome to all of you joining us on our virtual gathering here at First Church. Welcome to those of you in our studio audience, whether you're joining us here in New York City, from the bustling streets of the city, or tuning in from distant lands and foreign countries too. Your presence here is a testament to our shared quest for deeper understanding, for personal transformation. Today, we embark on another journey to explore the teachings, the profound teachings of religious science, of New Thought, and how they empower us to awaken to the divine within. Our journey, our spiritual journey, is not just about learning new concepts, but about learning how to have a shift in our consciousness, so that we may be able to transform our lives. So we need to learn the material, and we need to learn how to practice it. As always, we extend a special welcome to our new visitors. If you're new, welcome. You're in the right place. And for those of you who will be watching throughout the day, throughout the weekend, on platforms like Spotify, Facebook, YouTube, X, I'm glad you found us. It's always good if you can contact us directly and participate in the Zoom calls. There's ways to message us in every platform, and there's ways to support the center also. So we invite you to send us a message, and we will invite you, and you participate in whatever way you can. It's powerful if you're in our Zoom gathering, because afterwards we always have a time of personal sharing where people share their demonstrations, what's coming up for them, their comments. I think that's probably the best way to partake. But however you find us, listening to our YouTube lessons over and over again can be very helpful also. Every Wednesday, we have a wonderful class. Jimmy facilitates. It's our creative living series based upon our teaching. So that's Wednesdays at 7. And then I've been conducting what we call our Louise class, our self-healing class based upon the book, You Can Heal Your Life. This is something we're very proud of. I've been teaching this series for many, many years. So that's every Thursday at 7. It's the same Zoom links that you have for today. So First Church is the church of Raymond Charles Barker. Many of you know of him. You know of his books, The Power of Decision and other writings. He was the founding minister of this particular center. And then it's also the home of Louise Hay. You may or may not know that. She did her practitioner work with us. She was on staff. She learned about the science of mind. She learned about New Thought. And then she went on to be a great success with all of her writings and with the her Hay Foundation, the Hay House. So all that we do is available for you to watch rebroadcast on Facebook and YouTube for your repeat viewing. And it's completely free. As I mentioned before, we don't charge anything for any of our classes or our gatherings. We pretty much come from the place that Raymond Charles Barker did when he said, "We have a rich Father." And what he was saying by that is we are supplied and supported, and we believe that to be true. And we're supplied and supported through everyone's generosity. So in every chat, you'll notice that there's options for support. So if you can support the center and what we do, we appreciate it. And if you can't, don't worry about it. We're just glad you're here, and do what you can do. The best you can. So again, there's options in the chat room. There's an address if people prefer to send a check. So that's it. Again, I'll say like Barker, we are supplied and supported. So today's message, Awakening the Divine, we've talked about this idea before, but this is yet a different take on it. Let's start with an exploration. Let's start this moment with a moment of reflection. Deep at the center of my being, there's an infinite well of love. There is that which is within you that is always connected. It's a part of Source. It's one with Source. So we want to tune into that, and we want to delve into the essence of our spiritual self. Think about shifting from this higher power that you've had in your life to a different kind, to recognizing and embracing the idea that there's a divine essence within you, within each one of us. This journey we take represents a profound change in how to experience spirituality. Some of you have already made that shift. Some of you are considering it. As you make the shift from an external being, a higher power out there somewhere, to an internal spirit, to an internal energy, it's a profound change. And you'll start to experience living in a different way day by day, meaning you're going to work with the idea that this power is ready and it's available and it's in you and it responds to you. Imagine, for example, the difference from feeling alone in the world, cut off and sometimes unworthy from this energy that's far away, versus knowing that you yourself are a magnificent expression of it, that you are an individualization of it, that you're a part of it. Imagine knowing and realizing that you're one with it. You're unified with it. And realizing more and more, as you love yourself more and more, that you're worthy of great love, you're worthy of success, you're worthy of abundance, you're worthy of every good thing. Imagine living with that understanding that the God that you're talking about, that you've thought about, is always ready and always available, always within you. This is why we say deep at the center of our being is an infinite well of love and intelligence, because it's there, it's part of you. This is the transformation we seek to understand and foster through religious science, through new thought. Throughout history, religious teachings have often portrayed the divine as a very distant, judgmental authority. For example, in the Old Testament, God is depicted as a figure of awe and fear, whose favor must be earned through strict adherence to laws and rituals. Consider the words from Deuteronomy chapter 10. For the Lord your God is God of gods and Lord of lords, the great God, mighty and awesome, who shows no partiality and accepts no bribes. This verse highlights the immense power of God as being a God to be revered with the utmost respect and fear. Some of you may have experienced this type of God in your early years, in your religious training, where you were taught to approach God. The old language was in fear and trembling. I can remember it myself. Think of the scene, if you can remember Exodus, where the Israelites tremble at Mount Sinai, where the people saw thunder and lightning, and they heard the trumpet, and they saw the mountains in smoke, and they trembled with fear, and they stayed at a distance, as you can imagine, and they said to Moses, "Speak to us yourself, Moses, and we will listen, but do not have God speak to us, or we will die." This dramatic imagery instills a sense of overwhelming dread and awe towards the divine, feeling that you must prove your worthiness, right? You might recall from Leviticus in 26, where it's written, "But if you will not listen to me and carry out all these commands, if you reject my decrees and dislike my laws, and you fail to carry out all my commands, and you violate my covenant, then I will do this to you." And it goes on to say some terrible things. I'll give you a few. I'll bring you to sudden terror, wasting diseases and fevers will destroy your sight and sap your strength. See, these passages illustrate the severe consequences of failing to adhere to God's laws, emphasizing the fearsome nature of divine judgment. This portrayal set the stage for a relationship with the divine that was had to be mediated by religious authorities. The high priestess, well, most of the priests and prophets were seen as intermediaries, interpreting and enforcing the will of this powerful and often fearsome God, as seen in passages like I read, and also in Numbers, where the earth swallowed Korah and Korah's followers for their rebellion. Here's a little passage. The earth opened its mouth and swallowed them and all their households and all those associated with Korah. They were drowned alive in the realm of the dead, where everything they owned, the earth closed over them, and they perished. And they were gone from the community. So this is the God of old. We don't thankfully believe in any of this stuff. We don't believe the earth is going to swallow us. We don't obey. You see, this book was the very foundation of the whole system, the Judeo-Christian system. So here we are in New Thought. We've moved away from a lot of this. Many of us have grown up in Christian families, and we've got the Old Testament, we have the New Testament. I just read sections from the Bible. And when I was a younger person, everyone would read the book and they will say, this is the Word of God. And I never could understand that. I would understand that this is a book of stories of a people. I could understand lots of things, but I could never believe that that was the Word of God, that it was written by people over time. And so fortunately, we don't deal with a lot of that in religious science. But you can understand, for those people who follow these belief systems, that's where the trouble starts. How do you feel good about yourself when you're trying to live up to impossible standards and you realize you're never going to obey all these decrees? It will lead you to a sense of separation and unworthiness. And that could fast forward you to Louise Hay, where she would say the bottom line for everyone is they don't feel like they're good enough. Well, no wonder why, because we've grown up in families where we've been taught that we're not wonderful. When you come into a teaching like this, we teach you that you are. Now, if you go back to the Old Testament, a book like Leviticus, you have to follow all the meticulous laws and make great sacrifices to atone. And again, some of these teachings would say you were born in sin. So there was a need for priests and priestesses and intermediaries, and that always emphasized the distance between God and people. In the early centuries of Christianity, the church councils, which I remember reading a lot when I was younger, in the 3rd and 4th century, especially the Council of Nicaea, this is where the church or the churches were shaped. This is where they decided that Jesus was divine. This is where they made up a lot of the dogma of the early churches. This is where they went from having, 8, 10, 12 gospels to 4. These councils, incidentally, not a person in them ever knew Jesus. And they debated many things, and they made many decisions, which became the basis of the church. And as they did, they sidelined the human potential for direct experience of God, which is what we teach and what we talk about. The Nicene Creed, for example, was established during that time, where Jesus, again, was described as being divine. And this is where all of this was made. Fortunately, we don't have doctrines in New Thought. All of this, of course, when you hear it, when you see it, is man-made. It's made up by people like that during times like that. And they tried to consolidate this Christian movement. And before that, the foundational book, the Old Testament, was the foundation of Islam, Judaism, and Christianity. So there's a hierarchical structure, and this would mean that ordinary people would think that they need to go through priests and rabbis, and you need to go through someone to connect with the divine. During the medieval period, the Catholic Church's influence grew exponentially, and with it, the idea of a distant and judgmental God. The Church acted as the gatekeeper of salvation, and practices such as granting indulgences, the idea of people having to do penance and confession became the means through which the faithful could seek divine favor. The concept of indulgences where people could pay for the remission of their sins underscores the transactional nature of this period's spirituality. This dark period often left believers feeling that divine grace was something that they had to buy, rather than knowing that it was inherently available to everyone. Then as you move forward a little bit to the 16th century, there's this period of time called the Reformation, where Martin Luther and John Calvin challenged all this established stuff, all the doctrines of the church, all the man-made stuff that I cited that happened mostly in the 3rd and 4th century. Luther's emphasis was on scripture alone and faith, and he sought to return to a more direct personal relationship with divine. I'm mentioning all that because this is really ultimately what we teach, is a direct personal relationship with the divine, without all the intermediaries, without all the stuff that was built into the dogma of many of these faiths. However, these movements, they tried to make corrections. However, while they were revolutionary, they still retained the view of God as a distant judge. Luther, some of you might recall, had 95 theses, which he nailed to the door of the Wittenberg Castle Church. I remember seeing it when I was over there. In it, he criticized the church. In it, he criticized the church's corruption and the sale of indulgences. This act sparked a movement that aimed to reform the church, but it also led to a proliferation of different Christian denominations, literally hundreds of them, each with its own interpretation of scripture and relationship with the divine. I want to mention also, during Islam, like Christianity and Judaism, Islam has its roots in the Old Testament and also experienced significant shifts over time. The early Islamic community was guided by principles laid out in the Quran, which greatly emphasized the importance of justice, compassion, and equality. However, over the centuries, political and social changes led to the development of various schools of thought and interpretations that sometimes strayed way off from these foundational values. Today, many Muslim communities are engaged in the process of reformation and reinterpretation, seeking to return to the Quran's original teachings on equality and justice. Movements advocating for equal rights for women, inclusion of LGBTQ, and all are growing, reflecting a broader commitment to human rights within the Islamic world. So all these changes are part of a larger trend towards a more compassionate understanding of faith. Let's move now to the modern era. As we moved into this era, the era of enlightenment brought a shift towards reason and individualism. And this challenged all the traditional religious structures. Philosophers such as Immanuel Kant and Voltaire criticized the church's authority and promoted the idea of personal conscience. Yeah, personal conscience. That should remind you of Emerson, and moral autonomy. This period saw the beginning of a significant decline in the power of traditional churches and institutions. So they were starting to lose their power. Kant emphasized that morality is rooted in reason and autonomy, meaning freedom, suggesting that individuals could determine right and wrong through their own thinking, independent of religious authority. Voltaire had sharp critiques of organized religion and his advocacy for freedom of thought further eroded the church's dominance. So I'm giving you all this to see how it happened and how it's moved forward. And in the past couple centuries, the rise of New Thought and other spiritual movements began to challenge all of the old paradigms more directly. Figures like Ralph Waldo Emerson, who spoke of the oversoul. It's a beautiful essay. If you take the time to read it, you have to read it 2 or 3 times probably. But figures like him, who spoke of the oversoul, and Ernest Holmes, the founder of religious science, emphasized the divine within each and every one of us. See, it's all leading up to that. I'm sorry I had to give you the church history, but we all come out of it. Most everyone from the Judeo-Christian system, and that would include Islam as well. These teachings fostered a sense of empowerment and direct connection with creative intelligence. Now I'm talking about everyone in divine science, religious science, unity, going back to Ralph Waldo Emerson. It emphasizes the divine within each and every one of us. So again, all of these teachings, these teachers that you hear us talk about week after week after week, foster a sense of empowerment, and they encourage us to have a direct connection with creative intelligence, completely by bypassing the need for pastors and priests and everyone else. Even when it comes to religious science, we teach you how to do affirmative prayer. We teach you how to do affirmations. We don't want you dependent upon us because what you're looking for, you have within yourself. Emerson's transcendental essay, particularly Self-Reliance and the Oversoul, encouraged individuals to trust your inner experiences. There is that which is within you that knows, and there is that which is within you that shows, as Reverend Theodore used to say. It shows you the way. It will guide you if you let it. So we want to learn to trust that. Trust that our inner experiences and our intuition as pathways to understanding the divine. Ernest Holmes' teaching of the science of mind provided a systematic approach to using your thinking to shape your reality. He said there's power for good in the universe, greater than you, of which you're a part, and you can use it. So he provided a systematic approach for using your thinking to shape reality. Every Thursday, I ask you to pay attention to the most important person in the world. What has it been like being you this week? Because that conversation is the conversation that's creating your life. And as you start to monitor it and start to understand how powerful it is, you can begin to make course corrections. So using Holmes and the science of mind, again, Holmes provided what? A systematic approach for using thought to shape your reality. He was emphasizing that the divine is within everyone and accessible through our own consciousness, meaning you don't need Greg, you don't need anybody. We're here to help, of course, but you don't need us. You have everything you need within yourself. Today, many traditional churches and religious institutions face severely declining memberships and closures. This is a worldwide phenomenon. It's particularly evident in Europe, and it's increasingly so in the United States. This trend reflects a much broader cultural shift towards personal spirituality. So the shift is away from the buildings, right? And the cultural shift is towards personal spirituality over institutional religions. The rise of people who describe themselves as spiritual, but not religious, it's huge. Individuals, it signifies a move away from all this dogma of old, these ideas of separation, of the God up in the sky, the male figure that's fearful and all of that. So this rise of spiritual but not religious individuals, it's like a tidal wave. It's a move away from dogma and towards a more personal, direct experience of the divine. So understanding this historical context hopefully helps everyone appreciate the significance of how far we've come and how people are now perceiving and experiencing the divine. We've moved from a distant, judgmental authority mediated by religious institutions and sacraments to a much more immediate personal connection to the God that is within each and every one of us. This evolution, I know it's happened in my own lifetime, but it's been happening for hundreds of years. Hopefully this talk gives you a little bit of the context. This evolution underscores the ongoing transformation of spiritual consciousness. By recognizing the limitations of traditional doctrines and by embracing the empowering teachings of New Thought, we can awaken to the divine within and realize our true potential as inlets and outlets of this tremendous divine activity. You might think to yourself, I am an inlet and outlet of divine activity. I am a center. I am one with the one. You're the whole bit, as Raymond Charles Barker would say. So this shift in realizing who you are, I'm an individualization of this. This shift is not just a trend, but it's a profound return to the original, to the more direct spiritual experience that have always been at the heart of humanity's quest for meaning. This is what Ernest Holmes was excited about. He didn't really care very much about building churches, but he cared about the teaching. And he cared about people awakening, self-awakening, realization of self, loving the self. To emphasize this, we've seen significant transformation recently with major faiths. In Islam, for example, there are vibrant movements now advocating for a return to the beauty of the Quran and its progressive teachings on equality, justice, compassion. Similarly, in Judaism, many communities have embraced reforms that include the ordination of women, the acceptance of LGBTQT individuals, reflecting a much broader commitment to human rights. However, despite all the challenges, many people have become disillusioned with traditional religious structures. Joseph Campbell had a series with Bill Moyers a number of years back, quite a few years now, on the power of the myth. And he predicted this transformation, noting that as societies continue to evolve, their spiritual practices must evolve also. Campbell envisioned a time where the churches would become like museums. They would be relics of a past era that no longer meet spiritual needs of modern individuals. He predicted they would all be locked, shut down, sold off, except perhaps some of the more beautiful buildings. Today, we witness this shift firsthand. People have left, they're leaving traditional churches in search of a faith that resonates with their personal experiences and their modern values. They seek a spirituality that empowers and uplifts rather than condemns and controls. I read a little bit of what that feels like in the beginning of the lesson. So they want something that empowers and uplifts, and that's what we teach here every Sunday. That's what we teach with the Louise material. To love yourself and to hitch your wagon to the stars, knowing you are one with the one and you deserve the very best. This exodus away from all of the old is driven by a desire for a direct connection with the divine, and you can have it. It's within you. And you want that connection that's unmediated by these outdated structures and rigid interpretations. So against all of this backdrop, religious science offers a refreshing and transformative alternative. Those of you who are regular attendees or who tune in regularly, I'm sure you do find this to be refreshing, because we always aim for the heart, and we're always here to remind you how wonderful you are, remind you of the power you possess. Founded by Dr. Ernest Holmes, religious science is part of the broader New Thought movement that emerged in the 19th century. It teaches that there is a primary universal force, we can call it spirit, which is part of all things, and that each individual can tap into this force directly through your thoughts and through your feelings by centering yourself. Let me paraphrase Ernest Holmes' words. We believe in the living spirit, one indestructible, absolute, and self-existent cause. We believe that this one manifests itself in and through all creation, but it's not absorbed by its creation. We believe that the manifest universe, everything that you can see or think of, is the body of spirit. It's the logical and necessary outcome of the infinite self-knowingness of spirit. We believe in the incarnation of spirit in everyone, and that all people are individualizations of this one spirit. We believe in the eternality, the immortality, and the continuity of the individual soul that's forever and ever expanding. We believe that heaven is within us and that we experience it to the degree that we become conscious and aware of it. It's at hand for those of you who can see it. We believe the ultimate goal of life is to be free from all discord of every nature, and that this goal is sure to be attained by all. We believe in the unity of life, and that the highest truth and the innermost truth are the same, are one. We believe that spirit is personal to all who feel this indwelling presence. We believe in the direct revelation of truth through the intuitive and spiritual nature of the individual, and that any one of us may become a revealer of truth who lives in close contact with this indwelling spirit. We believe that universal spirit operates through a universal mind, which is the law of spirit, and that we're surrounded by this creative mind, which is always receiving our thoughts, our ideas, and impressing. And as it does, it acts upon them. We believe in the healing of the sick, and the control of conditions through the power of this mind. We believe in the eternal goodness, the eternal loving kindness, and the eternal givingness of life to everyone. We believe in our own soul, our own spirit, and our own destiny, where we understand that the life of all is the life of God. So how do we implement all of this in our daily life? Central to religious science is the practice of its learning to do affirmations and affirmative prayer treatment. Affirmative prayer aligns our thoughts with the divine presence in all things. We don't seek divine intervention from any external God. We realize the power for change and manifestation comes from within us. By understanding and applying these ideas, we learn to overcome limitations and truly transform our lives. So let's take a moment to practice a key aspect of religious science, affirmative prayer. I'd invite you to close your eyes for a moment. This will be very brief. And center yourself, realizing that you are one with this energy, this activity. Let yourself feel it. Think to yourself, I'm one with this energy. Now repeat to yourself after me. I am a living manifestation of the divine. My thoughts create my reality. Again, I am a living manifestation of the divine. My thoughts create my reality. I embody divine wisdom, and I access this wisdom easily. I embody divine wisdom, and I access this wisdom easily. And another. Every day, I experience my connection to the universal life force. I repeat, every day, I experience my connection to the universal life force. And this connection guides me and nourishes me. Every day, I experience my connection to the universal life force, and this connection guides and nourishes me. No, these affirmations are not just mere words. They are powerful tools that align our consciousness with the infinite possibilities of the divine. When we speak these affirmations with conviction, we set in motion a powerful force that shapes our reality in alignment with our highest good. I'm reminded of a journey of someone I'll call Emily. She's still part of our community, yet she now lives in another country. I remember her during the most challenging time of her life when she was dealing with a very tough medical diagnosis. It was during this time that she really embraced the principles of religious science because she wasn't getting good enough results with her healthcare team. She had lost faith in them, and of course, that's not a good thing. It's important to have faith in your medical team, the people who are helping you, if you want them to be helpful, right? Because if you believe they're not going to be helpful, then you're setting something in motion. So she needed to work with that. She realized that, and she realized also that she needed to do more herself to be in alignment with healing. I believe that's when I first heard from her. We spoke for quite a bit, and then I gave her a lot of things to read, and I taught her how to do affirmative prayer, realizing that her own affirmative prayer would help her across the board. Certainly, it would do more good for her than anything I could do for her. Through her daily application, through her daily affirmations and affirmative prayers, she started to overcome her challenges step by step. And I remember it taking a few months, but her health did improve step by step. Her satisfaction with her medical team improved as well. And along the way, Emily discovered how her very challenges developed into an opportunity for personal growth and a way for her to do service. It's been a while now, but the last I heard, she was in a really good place and is happily co-facilitating workshops in a wellness center. I think there's always going to be things that will surprise us, and that's exciting. There's things to learn. I don't think that ever ends. So what I say today is stay committed to the course. Keep yourself curious and maintain positive expectancy. My dad used to say to my mother, "Come grow old with me. The best is yet to be." Keep it positive, maintain positive expectancy, and keep remembering how wonderful you are. Stay close. Tune in often. You're doing a great job. We're here to remind you of that. I like to encourage you to tune in as often as you can and practice the principles we discuss in our weekly gatherings every Wednesday, Thursday, and Sunday. Let all these sessions be your spiritual laboratory where you can experiment and experience the power that we talk about firsthand. So let's close with an affirmative prayer. I recognize and I understand that there's one power backing all of creation. I'm grateful for the divine journey that unfolds before me, within me. I accept my divine right to live fully, a fully realized spiritual life. I'm open to the endless possibilities that arise from my connection with the universal presence. Thank you for joining today's session. As you go forth, carry the light of these teachings into every aspect of your life. May you continue to awaken to the divine within and live a life of infinite possibilities. And so it is. Thank you.